Get ready to uncover, develop, and celebrate the greatest you can be. Welcome to the Live the Good Life show with Sabrina Wright, connecting your physical and spiritual self. Sabrina is a holistic health and wellness advocate, consultant, encourager, and therapist, here to help you dive into self-care so you can be your own greatest advocate. Could you use a little direction? Sabrina takes a holistic, multifaceted approach. No part of your well-being is left behind. We all want to feel healthy, happy, and whole. So let's get to it. The Live the Good Life show starts now.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Live the Good Life show. I'm your host, Sabrina Wright, and every time we gather, my hope is that you're walking away with tools and resources that help you improve not only your self-care, but help you to live a good life. And today we are so fortunate to have Sue Hitzmann with us in the house, coming from beautiful sunny Florida. Let me tell you a little bit about Sue. She's nationally recognized neurofascial science and research educator, manual therapist, exercise physiologist, and the founding member of the Fascia Research Society. That all sounds really pretty heady. And for such a young woman, seriously, such a young woman, that is quite a dynamic life investment. She's also the founder and creator of the MELT method, a simple self-care technique that addresses the missing link to pain-free living, hydrated, supple fascia, and a stable, balanced nervous system. She's authored 2 best-selling books and is the CEO of Longevity Fitness, Inc., an online consumer and professional education business. I want to welcome Sue Hitzmann. I'm so excited.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Like I said, for such a young woman, you have such a very robust educational background. How did this actually unfold?
First of all, I'm so grateful to hear that 51 really is still young.
It is. Truly, it is, though.
It is. I feel like I'm at that halfway point of my life, but I think this has been a life journey when I was 11, my great grandmother was a super spry, full of love woman. And in one span of a year, she was in a old folks home and she didn't remember who I was. And, and I just remember saying to my aunt, what happened to great grandma? And she said, she just got old. And I said, am I going to get old? She said, yeah. I go, how do you stop that from happening? And so I think at maybe too young of an age, I saw aging as this horrible thing where you would forget everyone and that I was going to look like that, or that was going to happen to me. And I would epitomized wellness and vitality when I was a kid with people like Jack LaLanne and Jane Fonda. So I got into the fitness industry very young. Mm-hmm. And then I went to get a master's in physiology and anatomy. And I got introduced to Leon Chaitow and Judy Delaney's work of neuromuscular therapy in my early 20s while going through my master's. And so I had this idea of the human body and how you could intervene without medicine and without doctors to actually heal a body. And I had gotten injured many times and I got my body to heal. And it was in my late 20s, I woke up one day and the bottom of my foot hurt me and I had no reason for it. I didn't step on anything. I thought maybe I did step on a piece of glass because it was such an unusual pain that I had never experienced and had no definable source. And what started out as foot pain turned into this body-wide fatigue and ache, and nothing in my toolbox for neuromuscular therapy was really fixing it. And it sent me down this rabbit hole to discover what causes pain to become chronic. And back then, Google became a thing. I typed in fascia on the internet and I found this emerging field of neuroscientists and researchers and fascial researchers who were trying to uncover more about why pain became chronic beyond just the nervous system. What is it that caused pain to persist? And that's how I've kind of gotten myself out of fitness and into the healing arts to understand, just how to both help myself. I gave myself an answer, but I've also been able to help lots of other people do the same.
And with the melt method, you can do that. So what is melt?
Melt is a simple self-care method that uses soft balls and rollers, and it basically simulates the therapeutic intervention like light touch manual therapy does. So I basically teach people how to actively participate in understanding some of the common mishaps that occur in the body, what I call common imbalances, and to identify stuck stress or this issue in connective tissue that science is starting to understand is a key factor in persistent pain issues. And I always say, even if you, like 100% of the time, your brain's what's producing your pain. But if pain is chronic, you have an issue in your connective tissue called fascia. And most people don't know what fascia is, or that it's a renewable resource in the body. And I've spent the last 2 decades trying to simplify science for the general public so that they could understand some of these missing elements beyond their musculoskeletal system and beyond diet and exercise to help themselves live a more active life. Because there is a dirty little secret of fitness, is that lots of people eat right and exercise and still have pain. So this was my opportunity to share this method. It started out as homework for my clients in a private practice back in the late 90s. And by 2004, I just knew I had something. I was helping thousands of people at that point. And so I coined the term melt. And I thought maybe I could teach this in a group environment, keep people out of my office. So that was a bigger problem, because then I had to develop a language that was even more simplified, but that's where it all emerged. And by 2010, I set off to write the book, and the book came out in 2013, became a New York Times bestseller, and now I've got 2,000 instructors worldwide, and together we've just helped hundreds of thousands of people learn to live pain-free through this self-care methodology.
And it's a fantastic approach. Very rarely do you hear of practitioners or people in the health and wellness field who want to give their clients tools and resources so that they can take care of themselves. Right?
Sure. I mean, I thought that too. This whole thing started with a client saying to me, if you could just invent a way for me to do to myself what you do with your magic hands, I'd stay out of your office. And I'd be like, well, then I'd be unemployed. And well, but that does actually sound like a really interesting idea. I was like, I wonder if that is possible. And that was it. I instead of thinking, gosh, if I gave people homework, they wouldn't come back, I thought, gee, if I gave people homework, they'd get better faster. And then I could see new people and learn more from new people. And that was what happened. I went from seeing 50 people a year to over 500. So my practice, and that was, it was by 2004, I just couldn't see any more people at that point, because there were just no more hours in the day. And that's where I thought, gosh, maybe I could bring everybody into a group. And really what I know about healing is when you come into a group and you share energy in a group environment, I mean, a healing in a group is probably one of the most powerful sensations you can sense. And it was just, I mean, probably one of the most enlightening times was just to see people limp in and walk out and realize, my gosh, this is real. It's beyond me, that I'm helping people recognize that healing begins in themselves. And that if you can give people tools to go in their body and sense what they feel, which is really a call to action, because when you're in pain, you want to tune it out. You're taking pain relievers to not be in your body. So this was kind of a redirect for people, and it resonated. And so that was, I felt like I was connecting, and in the connection, that's where I really realized that's where healing begins, is to connect with one another and to allow ourselves to heal from the inside out.
Absolutely brilliant. As a body worker myself, it is difficult to get your client to really reconnect with themselves, because they're mentally and emotionally connected to the pain. And so you have to go through a huge re-education system so that they understand what's going on. I found Melt last year through friends who had been talking to me over a couple of years. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'll check it out. I'll check it out. And I finally did. And the first time I did my own ball treatment, my mind was blown because it had such a profound effect in my body with 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean,
And all it is a ball. It's a ball.
exactly. It's a ball.
Yeah.
It's a ball. Profound. Fortunately for me, I mean, there were a number of things that I was able to experience and identify in changes. So I was able to talk to clients and then just refer them to go get these products, get the DVD. I mean, the packages that you have are phenomenal. And there's so much more I have to ask you about, but we've got to go to a break real quick. But when we come back, I'd like to know, and I'm sure our readers do, is how does MELT address the fascia and the nervous system?
You want me to
Because
answer?
that, right?
Yes.
No. When we come back, no, it's okay, because we can be talking all day. But when we come back, we'll be hearing how fascia and the nervous system are actually combined. And this is going to be breakthrough information for you that'll be encouraging so that you can get your MELT on. Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Live the Good Life Show. I am here with Sue Hitzmann of the MELT Method. And before we go further in our conversation about how does MELT address the fascia and the nervous system affecting pain, Sue's been so kind and gracious to be able to offer some gifts. So by calling in, the first 5 people who call in with their name, email address, and phone number will be receiving a mini ball kit. Now, if I'm not mistaken, yes, it's got a softball, a hard ball. It's got some great stuff, right? Yep, a mini ball kit. For the first, in the band, for the first 5 callers who call in with their name, address, and phone number will receive the ball kit. Also, too, when you go to meltmethod.com and order any of the other wonderful products, including the long, soft roller and some of the bands, Sue's been gracious enough to extend a 10% discount off of your purchase by using the promo code Live the Good Life. So truly, go check out the website, check out the products. You want to add this to your daily self-care routine, guarantee. Okay, so Sue, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, in addition to the website, how would they find you?
Well, on top of the meltmethod.com website, I'm also very active on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. And actually for all of January and February, I'm doing a free live class every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm also very active on Instagram. I'm always laying down some wisdom there, and also the Facebook page under Melt Method. So they can find me on any of those pages. And that's probably the easiest way to connect.
Fantastic. What a way to start your year with all of this incredible free melt so that you can get your melt on and you can start changing your anatomy. So Sue, we just touched a little bit earlier about pain. And you mentioned fascia and the connective tissue, as well as the nervous system. How does MELT address both the fascia and the nervous system at the same time?
Okay, well, I had mentioned it before, right? That the brain 100% of the time is what's sending us a message that something's wrong, right? And pain happens for a lot of reasons: accidents, illness, injury, even heartbreak and the flu can cause your brain to send you a pain signal that something's not right. But the body has this 3-dimensional fluid-based architectural matrix called fascia, which is where all of these sensory nerves live in. And even if you don't have pain, everybody has experienced this adaptation in fascia that just is caused by daily living. So I'm going to point out what we call a pre-pain signal. Like when you sit for long periods of time and when you get up, you feel like you aged 40 years because your joints don't work as well when you get up as they did when you sat down. Or when you first get out of bed, you feel a little stiff, but as you move around, that stiffness tends to go away. But the thing about connective tissue is if you think of fascia like a river, daily living is actually laying down sediment in the river's flow, and where sediment loves to live is in your joints. And the really communication between the nervous system and our body are these mechanoreceptors that live in our joints. And if the connective tissue loses its fluid perfusion around joints, it alters the way that the brain is connecting to where our joints are. That can alter sensory motor control, our movement behavior, our overall function. But if the nervous system starts to have trouble managing our overall stability on every level can change. So not just like how well you balance on a Bosu ball, but I'm talking about emotional, psychological, chemical, neurological stability can change. And when that happens, if you never address the issues in your connective tissue, you start getting symptoms that seem a lot more noticeable, not just even joint aches and pains, but now you're feeling exhausted in the middle of the day. You're having trouble digesting certain types of food. You suddenly are gaining weight for no reason. And for as exhausted and fatigued as your body starts to feel at night, when you try to fall asleep, you can't. And that's a problem, because at night, if you can't fall asleep or stay asleep, you're waking up the next day with a backlog of accumulative stress, not just in your fascial system, but your nervous system. And this is one of the key factors of what not only causes persistent pain, but it's actually what accelerates your aging process. So for anybody that has any of those symptoms, you, instead of just popping a pill or thinking I need to inhibit my nervous system, which is what most of those pain pills do, is they're inhibiting what you feel. If you address the fluid perfusion of fascia, you can actually entirely change how your nervous system is functioning and improve neurological efficiency by way of your fascial system. So really they're inseparable. The fascial system and the nervous system are kind of like a superpower couple in the body, right? One is the most complex, your nervous system, and one is the most abundant material in the body. And together they are the stability system of the body. So if you want to maintain efficient mobility, you can't be efficiently mobile if you're inefficiently stable. So the stability system is the neurofascial system, and that's what we address in MELT.
And really, you can change that in just 10 minutes.
Yes, actually, the cool thing about fascia is because it's a fluid system and it's three-dimensional, if you know how to tap into the fluid system, you can alter your nervous system very quickly. And you had mentioned the ball, one of the balls in the kit. And, you know, in our hands, there's so many sensory receptors because, again, we've got lots of joints in our hands, feet, right? There's more joints in our hands and feet than anything else in the body along the spine, right? So if you treat your hands, it actually helps for better neural signaling. It helps the nervous system redirect information about where our joints are in relationship to our center of gravity. So as you start to treat your hands and feet, it actually helps the stress response of the nervous system come down and the repair processes come back up online. Because if we stay in a high stress state for too long, it actually alters the nervous system's repair processes. And I mentioned it before, at night, we need sleep because that's where our repair processes are dominant. So if we don't get a restful night's sleep, we wake up the next day with a backlog of that stress accumulation. And after a while, your nervous system kind of thinks that tip scale is the balanced state. And it just takes one too many nights of bad night's sleep. And now you're running into not only feeling sick or fatigue, but really causing dis-ease or disease of the body. So this is, again, a way for people to not allow our aging process to be a negative one, but to boost our body's processes of repair every day so that as we age, because we know when we age, we have less cell proliferation, right? We are losing muscle mass every day. But if we support the repair processes of the body, we really slow down the effects of aging that we would consider the negative effects of aging.
Wow. Ooh, we have a caller on the line, Sue. We have Lori from New York.
Hi,
Are you
Sabrina.
there?
Hi, Sue.
Hi, Lori.
How are you doing today?
Wonderful.
Wonderful. I just had a question, and I may be ahead of it a little bit, but I'm new to learning about this melt method, and I was wondering, for someone who may be older or not be able to do certain things like on the floor versus something with a chair or a wall or something, is there part of this that does not have to be done, like on the floor, for someone that has trouble getting up and getting down there?
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of the method, is that the method really meets anybody wherever they're at. We work with young and old, athletic, injured, it doesn't matter. So something like the hand treatment, you can do sitting at a table. The foot treatment, you don't even need to be standing up. You can sit down and do that one. A lot of the techniques, we have another roller. Instead of just the full round roller, we have a half roller. And I have a lot of people who do a lot of the techniques in bed. Even when my mom was recovering from her knee surgery, I had her do a lot of the techniques in her bed to improve the blood flow around the knees so that she was repairing more efficiently. So there's a lot of techniques you can do up against a wall. So that's really the beauty, is that we have people who couldn't get down on the floor when they first started. And as they started doing some of the techniques that they were able to manage, they slowly got better and better in their mobility, and they took that chance to get down on the floor. And I think the really beautiful thing about that is I think a lot of people's fear was, well, I could get down on the floor, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get back up. And after doing melt for a number of weeks, they're saying, hey, not only can I get down on the floor, I'm confident I can get back up off the floor. And that's it, is that you build up your body's you start to restore your mobility by, again, improving stability, because when you're more stable, you move more efficiently. So that's it, is, you just take melt in small pieces, you do the 10-minute treatments, and you see which treatments you're able to do. The ones you can do in bed, on the YouTube channel. If you go to Melt Method, there's a do-it-yourself video series where I use a towel, and people can do and just try it, some of the techniques using a towel, and see if they sense a change. And again, if you can't get down on the floor, lie on your bed and start there and work your way toward the floor.
Wow, that's great. So encouraging, Sue. That's wonderful. Well, I look forward to learning more about this, and thank you so much for that answer.
Absolutely. And by the way, there's lots of melt instructors in New York, and I'll be back at the end of the month doing a class at Sports Club LA, the Equinox, over on the Upper West Side. So I'm just pointing that out. But if you go to meltmethod.com and you click on find an instructor, you might find an instructor that might be nearby whom you're talking about. And if they need a little bit of extra help, sometimes just having somebody with you can get somebody to do more than they would do to them. So that's always an extra bonus.
No, thank you so much, Sue. Take care. And thank you, Sabrina.
You bet, Lori. Thanks for calling in. Wow. So easy to do. That's the beauty of melt, really.
It works. That's it.
It does.
It's easy and it works.
Yep. I can't believe it. It's already time for another break. But when we come back, we're talking with Sue Hitzmann of the Melt Method. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some things that you've had or you've mentioned and talked about in your blog. And some of it is not only about the physical, but we're going to talk about some emotional traumas and some stability in that area as well. So when we come back, you're listening to Live the Good Life Show with Sabrina Wright and Sue Hitzmann of the Melt Method. So stay tuned. We'll be back soon. God, Benny, you're the best. Great music. Great music.
I mean, it seems
In
fairly
honor of
appropriate,
Sue
right?
Hitzmann.
Yeah.
Sue Hitzmann in the Melt Method here. You're listening to Live the Good Life Show. And
oh my God. That's hilarious.
So
Yes.
you didn't choke, did you?
Oh my God, so funny.
So during the break, we were talking about pain, disease, and joy. And so I told you that I was introduced to Melt about a year ago, and I've been pretty faithful in learning all about Melt, but just practicing on myself and recommending it to clients that I work with. I ended up getting Sue's second book, Melt Performance, and was quite taken and impressed with the foreword, which is given by Dr. Eric Dalton, who's the founder of the Freedom from Pain Institute. And one of the things that he writes in this foreword, if I may share, is that in Melt Performance, Sue teaches us how to get ahead of the factors that contribute to injury and pain so we can perform at our highest level. She makes clear the optimum health requires a seamless continuum of proactive care, not just reactive rehab. That's important, I think. He also goes on to say, I hope that this work changes your perspective, the person reading this and learning Melt Performance, changes your perspective on healthcare. You should have the mindset that you, both personally and professionally, are a powerful player in the quest to get upstream of lifestyle-induced stress and injury conditions. By following Sue's protocols, we can upgrade our lives and accelerate quality outcomes for all. That is quite a testimony in your foreword. And I have to agree with him. Melt, I have found, is very simple. The important thing is that you're consistent with it, whether you realize what your body is doing in its change. The consistency over a period of time is going to have incremental impact and profound long-term changes.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, think of Melt like brushing your teeth. You brush your teeth daily so that your breath stays fresh, but you actually are also brushing your teeth daily to prevent tooth decay in the future. So when people say, like, well, how often do I have to melt? I'm like, how often do you have to breathe? Like, just do it daily. Just do it every day. Why not? Why not? Just once a day, give yourself permission, go into your body, sense what you feel, connect with where you are, and then, check in, just check in and have some sort of positive self-care regimen that you have. I think this is something that people don't do. And that one of the things that Eric said is really important that people hear, because I get it. A lot of people feel that they're very proactive with their healthcare, but in fact, what most people are is reactive. We do things after we've got a problem, and then we try to fix something. We think, well, I don't have that, so what do I care? But the thing is, aging is not a disease. They're not going to find a cure for it, okay? It's happening to you right now. It's happening to me. Although I always say, I know I'm aging really, but I really just want to do it later in life. So what I do is I become very proactive every day. I check in. I see how I feel. I give back to my body. I don't rely on my DNA and my good genetics. I check in and make sure that I'm adding to the quality of my day to day to ensure a better tomorrow. And that is proactivity. That's what we need to do.
That's terrific. So not only is it so right now we've been in a high anxiety state, a state the last couple of years where there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of unknowns, there's a lot of mental and emotional turmoil that's going on with people. And we're losing our joy, right? We're losing our joy. So in your blog, you actually talk about how Melt can help people heal from emotional traumas and anxiety and those things that affect us emotionally and mentally. Can you discuss that a little bit?
I mean, I have so much to say about this because I know this in my own personal story, my own personal journey over, probably many lifetimes, but for sure over this lifetime. But first, you're talking about, there is a lot of stress right now. And what it really comes down to is recognizing that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's fear. And when we're fearful, if we begin to become fearful of one another because of illness, because we're scared to die, what we need to do is practice the understanding, the art of being compassionate and understanding that life is impermanent, that we have this opportunity to come together and find joy. And even in times of stress and grief, that we have a choice to suffer or not. And if we can remember that, we can really be more solid in our form and our very being. So where melt really helps is when we don't feel good, it can really mess with our mind. And our mind, I always say, is kind of a terrible thing because it can talk us into a box if we let it. So we need to realize that our body, when we're in pain or we're ill, isn't working against us. We can't badmouth our body. Like, why is my body doing this? I don't understand this. And what we're doing is we're getting into the minutia of the mind, and the mind can perpetuate pain. And connective tissue is really where we hold a lot of memory. And although this isn't scientifically proven, we know that our bodies react to our emotions. When you're happy, you kind of see when somebody's happy. And when somebody's sad, if your friend comes in and they're like, hey, you're like, are you all right? And they're like, yeah, I'm okay. And you're like, come on, hug it up. And the second that you get that hug, what happens? You bawl, right? That touch, that connection is what allows our body to let go of the fear, of the worry, of the pain. And I think that's where melt is so, I think, necessary, because healing really, again, starts inside of ourselves. So if we give ourselves that conscious and loving awareness to go into our bodies to care for ourselves, it shifts the way the brain and the body are communicating. And through fascia, we can really change how we feel. And if we have emotions that are truly trapped in our body, they call them somato-emotional releases. And I've experienced those. I think, and I wrote it in the Melt Performance book, that when I had that foot pain, the crazy thing is, after I can reflect back and say, literally a year before the day my father died was when my foot started to hurt me. And I think what it was my frequency, my energy was recognizing his spirit was going to depart. It was going to depart that body. And it was like as if I was being upheld from the foundation of my father's home, of what my dad said was who I needed to be and how I needed to act. And when he died, it wasn't that the pain disappeared. It didn't. In fact, I think it got so erupted in me because I needed to realize that who I was finally free to be me without the judgment of him. And it changed everything for me that year. And I think that it made me really understand that pain, emotional trauma can be worse than physical trauma. And just a few years after my dad had passed away, 9/11 happened. So I did get the rude awakening of post-traumatic stress disorder in New York City. And so into my office came people who didn't have physical pain. They had emotional pain. They lost their brothers, their sisters, their moms, dads, friends. And the pain that they had, they couldn't associate it with what was happening. But we are a beautiful spirit inside of a physical form that in our spirit, if we can heal the spirit, we can heal the form. And I know that might sound very ethereal and very up in the air, but energy is not something fabricated in the spirit world. Energy is physics, and we are nothing but energy, and energy just changes form. So by treating fascia has a frequency, it has a vibration, it is how we communicate. And if you learn to treat and tap into connective tissue, it really does alter all of the aspects of physical, emotional, chemical, and neurological form that we are. And it can help us to heal. And I mean, that's where we need to understand that we're more than our emotions, we're more than our thoughts. And if we allow that to be true, we have much more ability to heal ourselves and to trust that we can heal.
Wow, that's amazing. I want to make sure that our listeners know that this is a call-in show. So if there are any questions that you want to ask Sue, you can dial in at 1-800-930-2819. That's 1-800-930-2819. Get your calls in to Sue. Let her answer your specific interests, right? So much. The thing is that it's beautiful and it's impactful in such a really subtle way. Who knew? I mean, we're complex individuals, not only emotionally, physically, but mentally, all of it. We're complex. And we don't have avenues or practitioners in our lives who teach us how to steward and take care of our bodies, right?
Well, we should, but you're right. I mean, we're not taught self-care, right? We're not taught self-preservation. We almost learn it. Like if you've been neglected in your childhood, you kind of figure out how to do things on your own, but nobody kind of teaches you that. You just sort of figure it out, right? So we're not taught how to care for ourselves. It's sort of trial and error. Whereas back, when there were shamans and tribes and, we would care for one another and the community would care for one another. It's sort of like we're left out on our own. Like, hey, once you're 18, you are out of this house. I don't need to pay child support anymore. And I'm not helping you out or whatever it is. You got to figure it out yourself. And there's a lot of that mindset for people where I remember that for me when I got into my 20s and I thought for sure, like, by the time I got out of college, like I was going to have this great career and I was going to have a lot of money and all these things. And when that just didn't show up, it was depressing. I mean, I got myself very depressed that I wasn't good enough. Like, why couldn't I do it? And oddly, when my dad said, whatever gave you that thought? And I was like, well, you did. He goes, did I do that? It's like, I didn't even know. Right. So sometimes our parents do to us what then we end up doing to ourselves. And so we need to unwrap those neural pathways and create the pruning and kind of kill those thought viruses that we have, that we're not good enough, that we need to suffer, or we're not going to be loved, we're not going to be accepted. And gosh, if I'm me and I expose who I am, somebody's going to shame me and people are going to hate me. And there's a lot of that out there, which is, again, part of what causes people to suffer and not go back to how you heal, which is out of love. You can't heal if you don't love yourself.
Exactly. And you were remarkably, intentionally created for abundance, a good life, for so many amazing things. Life is the journey of figuring out who you are and what that gift is and how you can use it. I mean, it's like the grandest puzzle ever. And it's all good because through every challenge and hardship, there's a lesson to be learned and a blessing to be received.
Yes, not only
simple,
but for the people you connect with. Like I always say, the universe loves us. The universe wants us to have joy and abundance and love and prosperity. And even when one of us gets injured or something, post-traumatic stress injury, trauma, whatever it is, but it's not just your trauma. It's my trauma. It's our trauma, right? And so we learn together how to love, how to have the greatest blessing, which is life itself. And some people are going to die young. Some people are going to live long lives, but we wouldn't understand love if we didn't have loss or grief. I mean, when my husband died a couple of years ago, it shattered so much of my heart. I mean, I remember just the devastation when it first happened and what was happening in front of me that culminated into his death. And I remember someone saying to me, your interpretation of grief is so loving. And I said, the cracks are where the love shines through. So it's a learning for me of how deeply I love. Like, grief is just love with no place to go, right? So
Right.
it teaches you how to love and to honor love and to honor your friends and your family and just life itself. Life is short and it's fleeting. So for every moment that we're here, life's a gift, and we need to, if we can allow that to be part of our story, even when we have pain or we are suffering, I think it can change us to coming back to love, which is, again, I think that's it. That's what it's all about. It's so easy, actually. It's so simple. Life. It's about love.
So simple, it's hard to comprehend. It's that simple. We do have a caller. We have Lisa from California. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, ladies. How are you? I thank you both for your time and for sharing this incredibly profound method. Sue, I'm continue to be in awe. I have the pleasure of practicing melt with Andrea at Studio A, and I go all the time, and I do it at home, and my life has been absolutely dramatically changed for all the reasons, from prevention of pain to eating more water-filled foods and sipping more water and spreading love and all the things that you endorse and talk about. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I had to pop off and take a phone call from my son. So you may have talked about this, but I have to tell you that I had a procedure done and I wasn't able to do any roller work for about a week. But I kept doing my hands and feet, right? Because I could do that. I could do my hands, I could do my feet gently. But I have to say, I was talking to Andrea and I said, Andrea, I wasn't able to do anything for a week. And when I went to go do my first rest assess on the floor, I couldn't believe how I was still so balanced. And I want to think it's because there's lingering, lasting effects of the melt mess, all my naps that I would do all the time anyway. But it's because I kept doing my hands and feet when I wasn't able to do even a rebalancing sequence.
Yeah, I always kind of think of melt as a little bit like taking an anti-inflammatory. You don't take it once and then, you think you're going to fix the problem. If you continue to build it up, actually your body, what I call a body baseline, does start to change, where the common imbalances are less and they cause less effect over time. So the hands and feet, I know this sounds crazy, but the hands and feet it's the foundation of the method. I think of melt like a pyramid, and at the base is your hands and feet, because that's where neural signaling originates back to the brain is through touch and sensory reception. So you did exactly the right thing here, is that you melted your hands and feet even while you were recovering, and you didn't just do nothing, which is what builds the tolerance to come back faster. And you aided yourself in healing, which is genius. So good for you for being a good self-care advocate. And of course, big shout out to Andrea. She is amazing. She's one of our top instructors. You're in good hands.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you can come back again like you did that one time when we could all experience you. But surgeon couldn't believe how quickly I healed. Everything. He was like, and I told him, I said, I take certain products and I do this melt method. And he's like, well, I want to know more about it. And so it really was. And I've tried to explain that to my mom, who's 83. Don't discount your hands and feet, Mom. Don't just think you have to get on the roller to do the work. Like, hands and feet are profound. And I love that lingering, lasting, almost muscle memory that my body had. And that even when I was kind of incapacitated for a short time, I could still have profound results from using these little tiny balls on my hands and feet. So thank you. I sing your praises everywhere I go. I cannot thank you and Andrea enough for sharing this system that you've designed, and you're brilliant, and I'm in awe. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. My life is abundant. I mean, I can't, like, how can I not continue to do this? Period, right? I mean, truly,
Right.
it is a privilege to help people and to watch how they own it, right? I mean, you hear it in her voice. She owned her self-care and she cared for herself. And this is huge. And the other thing people need to hear is connective tissue, fascia, that's where scars develop. Scars are part of our healing journey, but a scar kind of has an on button with no off button. And if you melt, what it does is it decreases that tacking down of unnecessary tissue beyond where the scar really needs to lay down, because the body doesn't really know where to end the scarring and the adhesion. So if we sit still for too long after a surgery, it actually creates too much tacking of fascia and this thickening of scar tissue that can cause long-term effect. And so what she's saying is she actually kind of took her healing into her own hands and helped her body heal faster and decrease the unnecessary accumulation of scar tissue. And she got better faster. And that's beautiful.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate you calling in. We have one more caller before we finish this show. And this caller, Denise from New York. Hi, Denise.
Hi there. How are you?
Fantastic. What's your question for Sue?
Hey, Sue, I think she may have partly answered this, but can this help for built up scar tissue? Like my husband, actually me too, had surgery maybe 3 or 4 years ago. His was pretty significant because it was colon resection, and he now suffers with a lot of residual back pain, which I think might possibly be scar tissue.
100%. So, Denise, the thing about abdominal surgeries is that the abdomen is literally cylinders of fascial tissue. There are membranous layers. And so when you have a colon surgery, the colon and the mesentery, it's like another component of it, is adhered on the backside of the tissue, and it can significantly affect the low back. So we actually, my claim to fame, I guess, is this. I did a low back pain research study because after working on like 10,000 people who had any type of pain, they all had checkmark back pain, and a lot of them have had abdominal surgeries like cesareans and colon surgeries. And when the scarring starts to happen, it thickens the tissue around what's called the thoracolumbar fascia, which is what kind of sandwiches all the muscles of the low back together. And it thickens the tissue. And when fascia becomes too thick, it alters sensory motor control. So the brain can't send messages down to the muscle because the fascia is in fact kind of blocking those sensory nerves from sending the motor response back and forth. So the best way to start in this is doing the foot treatments, then the lower body compression sequence. So you don't want to go right to the low back. You're going to go to the lower body compression sequence, try to draw fluid flow back to the low back. And then I would recommend, if his back is really bad still, doing a half roller or going to YouTube and looking at the do-it-yourself lower body length techniques where he puts his pelvis on the roller. And what happens with a lot of people when you get abdominal surgeries is that the brain kind of works like a GPS system, and it's trying to find your pelvis, which is your center of gravity. And if it can't, you lose the mobility of your pelvis. So there's techniques that he can learn to restore that neural connection, which will minimize his low back pain and actually improve his mobility so he can get back into active living.
That's exciting. Thank you so much, Sue and Denise. Thanks for calling in. You guys, this conversation, I wish we had more time. There's so much here. Sue, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart from taking the time to meet today, to share about MELT. Ladies and gentlemen, listeners of Transformation Talk Radio, Live the Good Life Show, go to meltmethod.com for your MELT products. Use the promo code Live the Good Life. Get your discount. Thank you so much. If you want any more information, you know where to reach us on Instagram, on Facebook, on our websites. I'm Sabrina Wright, your host, and I want to thank you so much for spending this time with us. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Live the Good Life show with Sabrina Wright. Tune in on the second Thursday of next month at 11 a.m. Pacific for more tips, tricks, and insights to help you invest in your best self. Find balance in your lifestyle and watch yourself evolve into who you're meant to be. For more information about Sabrina and her services, visit therightbalance.com. That's the right, WRIGHT, balance.com.